that politics has substituted religion to some extent. People have almost like this religious zealotry toward their political beliefs. And when that happens, it's really difficult to have a conversation with someone without it immediately devolving into allegations of bad faith, of, lying, deception, all sorts of things. And so maybe that's part of it. But honestly, I didn't really notice this as an issue in America until Donald Trump was running for president. And then after he got elected as president. And I am 1,000,000% guilty of honestly allowing him to kind of break my brain for a little bit. Because I saw him as such a significant threat. The fact of the matter is they do play defense more and more for the Democratic Party. And that's an issue because there was a time when that didn't happen. And so I still believed in their good faith reporting, even though it turns out, a lot of these reports would omit really important details about what's really going on.
Of which, Anna, that you did partake in for a pretty good amount of time there. Now, look, I've praised Ana Kasparian a lot over the course of 2024 and 2023, or I would say that I've given her credit where credit was due. However, there are some people out there who believe that this right here is just one great big giant grift. So before we get started, let me go ahead and tell you how this is going to work. I'm going to talk about Ana today, and then I'm going to talk about Jink a little bit later on this week. I've not decided exactly which day. As a matter of fact, this right here is going to be a very, very wonky week because I've also got a couple other things that I'm working on that might actually throw a monkey wrench into what we're doing. As you guys can obviously see, I'm doing this video here on Monday morning rather than Sunday night. So yeah, I'm already a little bit behind, but don't worry, it will be made up for over the course of the week. But still though, a lot of people out there are wondering if this right here is a grift. One said person is Laura Loomer. Now, I'm going to link this tweet, which is a thread from Milo, which was roughly 5 minutes long from his time at the Timcast IRL, having a conversation about Laura Loomer. And I'll just let you guys kind of look at that, kind of watch it, see for yourself what you actually think about it. But there is a compelling case to be made that this right here is once again just one great big giant grift. However, I'm not fully buying into that, so make sure you guys stick around for the full video, and I'll explain to you guys why this is the case. But of course, before we get started, make sure you guys please hit the like button. Please go ahead and cut the notifications bell on so that way you guys are notified when the videos are released, and go ahead and start beating back on the censorship because everybody's views are down, and the YouTube algorithm is obviously not letting certain bits of content come out. There'll be an explanation much, much quicker, or excuse me, there'll be an explanation that'll be much, much more thorough at the end of the year, probably right before Christmas, on the direction of the channel going in 2025, exactly how I plan to do this stuff, because a lot of this right is stuff that I want to do this year, but I got to do it going into 2025. So here's the deal. She goes on Glenn Beck, as you guys obviously saw, had a conversation, basically leads everybody to believe that she was duped. And I do believe that she was duped to a certain degree, but not by the mainstream media, by something else and someone else in particular, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in this video. But this conversation to me with Glenn Beck looks very similar to another conversation that Glenn Beck had with somebody who was on the left back in 2019. And yes, I'm talking about the beanie guy, Tim Pool. Tim Pool had always been a Bernie bro and still somewhat favors the left, but of course he decided to shift over and take more with the conservative side of the aisle, mostly due to the mainstream media. But go back to that very opening clip with Ana Kasparian saying that it was the media. The media put out falsities. Well, Ana, you yourself also put falsities out as well. We'll get to that here in a second. But let's go ahead and go to the start of when people started to think that this was, in fact, a grift. Okay, so here's the clip that went viral that got people asking the question whether it was actually what Ana's been doing recently is just another grift to come to the right. Let's roll this. Of course, I had to file it down for the purpose of time, roughly a minute, but let's roll it.
Like trying to get his bicycle, up the stairs. And all of a sudden, this man stops me. His name's Jeff. And he's like, hey, let me help you out with that. And he starts helping me out. He stopped everything he was doing to help me out. And then Jeff and I became very close. One of my neighbors who I really like, he was my favorite person in the entire building. Jeff whispers in my ear, oh, she's going to start trashing Trump. I'm out of here. And it hit me that he's a Trump supporter. We had never talked about politics before. And I'm like, so I got to know Jeff before I knew what his politics were. Incredibly kind guy. He helps everyone in this building with anything they might need. And so that woke me up to, wait a minute, not all Trump supporters are like dangerous, evil individuals. And yes, it was stupid that I.
So one of your neighbors is a Trump voter, and you automatically came away thinking to yourself, because he helped you out with your bike, that not all Trump voters are bad. This right here is obviously one hell of a departure from.
There were two older white guys. They're behind me, and in the span of 5 minutes, they badmouth Latinos loudly and very transparently. Badmouth Latinos, Muslims, and black people, okay? And I just couldn't take it anymore. And I just turned around and I told them to shut the F up. We wouldn't have experienced that before. Like that kind of open hatred where you feel emboldened enough to talk like that about 3 groups of people in the country that are women voting against women. I have no respect for women who voted for Trump, okay?
Yeah, me too.
I think so poorly of them, and the reason why is because, look, I don't think that you're a single issue voter. I just think you're dumb, okay? I think you're fucking dumb.
Yeah. And like I said, you guys know me. I've praised Ana on several occasions this year for when she got to take either right or she got to take almost right. And of course, I've also talked about how it was that Ana, for a long time, had been showing the signs that she was eventually going to leave the progressive left, or at least the progressive loony side of the left, which is really loony altogether. But still, though, the point is this right here. She's actually criticized, she's attacked the left, and of course, she's even talked about this right here and how the left has this inability to not take criticism. But I'll play that clip for you guys in a second. But before I do that, this video right here from Actual Justice Warrior will be in the description box, which further details the Ana Kasparian and Laura Loomer situation. Laura Loomer, if you know who she is, she has a tendency to go out there and let's just say that she's batshit crazy. I like Laura, but she's batshit crazy. I'll just leave it at that. Actually, let me say one more thing. Laura Loomer is the kind of person that repels people from joining the conservative movement because they see her and they think to themselves, wow, this fire is all conservatives. And like I said, I don't mean to bash Laura. I actually like Laura. But Laura can come on just a little bit too strong. All right? And that segment that I'm going to link in the description box of Milo, some people are probably saying you're falling for his grift. And my response to that is, we all know that Milo is a grifter. We all know that he's a grifting little shit, okay? But the man is very, very talented, and I haven't exactly known the man to actually lie. I have known him to play people against one another, and I have known him to be a little bit deceitful, but not outright lie. Just simply saying. Go back to that video I did a while back on Matt Walsh, basically telling everybody that Amber Rose should not be around, should not be allowed to speak at the RNC, she should not be allowed to influence conservatism. And while I agree with half of that, I do believe that you need to build a tent, like a bigger tent, so that way you can win elections, gain back power. And these people who've got these very degenerate pasts, you bring them over, you have conversations, and after a while, they grow. They grow before your eyes. That's the point of politics, or actually shaping minds. That's the point of saving people, okay? That's how you do it, okay? Just simply saying. But Ana, of course, had this bit where she had basically said that the left doesn't exactly know how to handle criticism. Let me play this for you.
Statistics, and they have no choice but to acknowledge, okay, well, in some cities there is an increase in crime. They refuse to take any ownership of the failures of some of the reforms, including bail reform, which I think could work with some important and necessary tweaks, but they're just unwilling to. There's like this unwillingness to ever admit that anyone's wrong. And I think that it takes a lot of strength and courage to say, yeah, you know what? We tried this. It's not quite working, but we want to experiment with a few tweaks to see if we can get it to work. I think that there's a lot to admire about that approach, but we're not seeing that. And, to your point, Sarah, like the thing that drives me crazy is right now, the left-wing narrative is dominated by privileged people who tend to live in beautiful gated communities and are untouched. They're insulated from the policies that they push for, right? I mean, Rob Henderson calls it luxury beliefs, and I think it's a perfect way to think of it because they get social capital from all of their rich friends by advocating for these policies.
Where was this Ana at like 10 years ago? Where was this Ana at 5 years ago? I mean, seriously, we've been saying the exact same thing.
Okay, and then she would later on go on to criticize Joe Biden on the Hunter Biden pardon.
taken part in during the period from January 1st, 2014 through December 1st, 2024. So that's 10 years, a 10-year span. So he writes that the pardon window extends beyond the period of the crimes prosecuted by the Department of Justice. Okay, because after all, the illegal firearm purchase was on October 12th of 2018. Hunter failed to pay his 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019 taxes on time. So what justifies going all the way back to January 1st of 2014? Well, 2014 is when he was tapped to serve on the board of the Ukrainian gas company Burisma.
So you're probably thinking to yourself that Ana has come a long way. And like I said before, this has been going on for a while. There was a bit where Ana Kasparian had, if you guys remember, she criticized Kathy Hochul when she was on The View over the crime in New York City, saying that the crime was not existent. And Ana had brought up a situation which I had talked about before, the limbs, the people who were removing people's limbs, and they basically were running this. I'm not even going to get too much into it, but it was pretty daggone bad. She basically called her out for that. She also had a segment where she went off about the border crisis, the immigration issue. She also, at the same time, was somebody who was actually physically assaulted, sexually assaulted outside of her home. Basically, the point is that Ana's been living in the policies that she voted for, and she kind of woke up and said, okay, maybe we need to pull back from this. Now, does that mean that she's no longer on the left? Of course not. She's still very, very much on the left. However, I tend to agree with what Spoon said about her in a video that I think he pulled down or put on Rumble about how it is that Ana was not really and truly an actual true leftist, that she was more along the lines of somebody who was left-leaning, who had got more or less influenced by the zealotry of someone like, say, Cenk, who we're finding out right now is exactly what I had said before, didn't really and truly believe in the beliefs that he had espoused. Getting back to Ana. She's gone on Jillian Michaels and talked about the issues with the far left. She's been on Stitch and Adam and talked about the issues with the far left. She's been on multiple podcasts, multiple shows, and talked about how it is that the left cannot take criticism. She's also at the same time exhibited behavior that told you that she was, in fact, coming back towards the center, that she was not willing to vote for the Democratic Party, as long as the Democratic Party kept on trying to pander to people like Liz Cheney, quote-unquote warmongers, people that left by design are supposed to hate and not like, and therefore people were already wondering if this right here, because she went on Glenn Beck, or because she talked about a guy in her apartment complex, they're starting to wonder if it's an actual full-blown grift. I'm here to tell you guys right now that I don't believe it's a grift, at least from her end, but that she's been gradually coming around. Now, will she fully come around? I don't really and truly know. But that right there then, of course, brings us to the conversation that she had with Glenn Beck.
Definitely be honest about my own flaws and my own mistakes, because I bought the mainstream media narrative that there wasn't a migrant crisis.
Really?
And yeah, I did believe it. I believe because, look, I was an idiot because, I mean, who do you trust in today's media landscape?
I know.
Right? There's a lot of liars out there.
Yeah,
and when it comes to mainstream media, the fact of the matter is they do play defense more and more for the Democratic Party. And that's an issue because there was a time when that didn't happen. And so I still believed in their good faith reporting, even though it turns out, a lot of these reports would omit really important details about what's really going on.
It's like somebody's trying to say that they were duped. Not so fast. Now, this bit here about the migrant crisis, I will give Ana credit for, because Ana did call this out. It was back in the spring of 2024, but she did call it out. She even did a very, very long segment on the migrant crisis, and it was right around that time that they had the issue where she called out Kathy Hochul, governor of New York. If I called her mayor of New York earlier, I apologize. Something I have to go back and fix in the editing phase of this video, but still, the point is this right here. The migrant crisis, I think, woke a lot of people up, and therefore Ana does not sound, in my opinion, like she was completely undone by the... or how I say, it doesn't seem to me like she didn't think that the left would be able to win on that issue. I mean, she talked about Chicago, the city council meetings, and of course, also on election night 2024, if you paid attention to her body language, you got the impression that she knew that the Democrats were, in fact, going to lose.
And certain reversals of Trump-era immigration policies, which at the time I didn't give Trump credit for because he wasn't really applauded for it. And I didn't realize that, the Remain in Mexico policy was actually very successful, and Biden reversing it did lead to the crisis at the border that ended up being a political liability that backed him up into a corner. And suddenly he's hitting up Republicans in the Senate, asking them to write legislation that Republicans would like. So there are some flaws on the left for sure. And I think it's important to be real about those flaws.
Now, this bit here about the migrant crisis, I will give Ana credit for, because Ana did call this out. It was back in the spring of 2024, but she did call it out. She even did a very, very long segment on the migrant crisis, and it was right around that time that they had the issue where she called out Kathy Hochul, governor of New York. If I called her mayor of New York earlier, I apologize. Something I have to go back and fix in the editing phase of this video, but still, though, the point is this right here. The migrant crisis, I think, woke a lot of people up, and therefore Ana does not sound, in my opinion, like she was completely undone by the, or how I say, it doesn't seem to me like she didn't think that the left would be able to win on that issue. I mean, she talked about Chicago, the city council meetings, and of course, also on election night 2024, if you paid attention to her body language, you got the impression that she knew that the Democrats were, in fact, going to lose. But this conversation to me still reminds me of the conversation that he had with Tim Pool back in 2019 about the media, the lies of the media, the algorithm, and suppression of content. I may link that in the description box for you guys. It's a pretty old episode, but I think I'll link it there. It's kind of odd to say it's pretty old, given the fact that it's only about 5 years old, which makes me automatically start to feel kind of old. How time flies. But let's go ahead and finish this off.
So it wasn't until Texas Governor Greg Abbott started busing or sending migrants to blue cities where that woke me up. That woke a lot of people up. And suddenly America realizes, oh, there is a migrant crisis.
Why did that wake you up?
Well, because all of a sudden you're seeing migrants sleeping on the floor in the police department in Chicago because they don't have shelter for these people, right? You're seeing, these... I love watching streams of city council meetings because that's how you understand what's really going on in these cities, right? These are real people who live there and they get their opportunity to speak.
Chicago's been an amazing thing to watch.
Wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I watch every city council meeting from Chicago because it's
crazy.
incredible.
Yeah.
People on the left, they have to get what it is that they vote for before they begin to change their minds. However, it also does strike me kind of odd that she would, for the most part, denounce that. It's almost like she's doing this from a more analytical perspective, meaning that she's doing this more to criticize the actual left itself. So let me go ahead and tell you what I think is going to happen going forward, because if you listen to the way she talks, say Trump flipping 10 counties, they didn't think that the Democrats would lose 10 counties in the state of California. It seems to me like there's an approach here that nobody has actually thought about that I think I'm going to go ahead and give you guys, because you guys know me, I'm special. I like to try to point out things that nobody's actually thought about or actually said out loud, but I'm going to go ahead and do it. Go back to what I said at the very beginning. Ana Kasparian has never really and truly been a pure, full-blown leftist. She's been in the crowd. She's been in the gang. She's definitely on the left, but not a full-blown leftist. She's been pivoting back towards the center on certain issues like crime, immigration, et cetera, but she's still very, very much a lib. She did not support the Democratic Party this election cycle. She probably won't in the future, and I'll tell you how it is that I know. It's because that she is looking at this more from a perspective of they can't win going forward. I did a video on this a while back where it was that she talked about how it was that the Democratic Party was placating to people like, say, Liz Cheney, to the quote-unquote warmongers, neocons, stuff like that there. And I came away with the sense that her issue is the fact that she just does not want to vote for a party that does not represent her values, which is understandable, because there's a lot of people who are right-leaning who don't want to vote for the Republican Party because it does not represent their values. I think that Ana Kasparian is entering the exact same side of the arena, except more from the left perspective. She's not going to vote Democrat because it doesn't represent her values, but also at the same time, the stuff that she's been through, from the sexual assault outside of her apartment to the homeless situation, which I forgot to mention earlier because she talked about that as well, to the dangers of California, to the fact that the price of everything's gone through the roof, the grift, which, by the way, I'll link the full clip in the description box because she also talked about that in the interview. The corruption, what's happening is that she's realizing that the Democratic Party itself is just not, how do I say, innocent. She's realizing that they are just as guilty, if not more guilty, probably more guilty than the Republican Party of this stuff. So therefore, she's just no longer a Democrat. But of course, she still remains somebody who's left-leaning. Like I said, she'll never fully, ever completely leave the left. She's stuck somewhere between the progressive left and the insane progressive left and just good old-fashioned classical liberals. That right there is where she's stuck at, and I think what ends up happening to her is that she becomes more of a classical liberal who just doesn't vote for the Democratic Party going forward. Jink, on the other hand, I think is a different story altogether, and we'll be talking about him a little bit later on this week, so make sure you guys stick around for that. So no, I don't believe that this right here is a grift by Ana. I don't believe it is from her, and I don't believe it's a full-blown grift just yet from TYT. But like I said, I need to go back and look at the stuff involving Jink a little bit more carefully. I need to go back and look at one more particular event in that show's history with another former co-host of that show to get a better grasp on what's going on. I'll be one to admit to say I don't have all the answers on that there, but that video will be coming out later on this week. With that right there being said, I'm going to try to get a second video out today, guys. I don't know. Some developments occurred with the Daniel Penny situation. And, of course, you've also got this stuff with Syria and, of course, the Assad regime falling. Chances are this right here might be the only video that gets released. And what I might do is release 3 videos tomorrow. But I need to go ahead and get kind of the better information on what's going on with those situations before I decide to put it out. I don't want to, get faulty information, especially when it comes to something like, say, foreign policy. So make sure you guys stick around. I may have another video out later on today. I'm not entirely sure yet. That right there being said, make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.